If you've ever looked in the mirror and felt like something about your body had to change before you could be worthy of love, confidence, or happiness, this message is for you. Have you ever looked in the mirror and thought, if I could just change this one thing about my body, then I'd feel confident? The truth is, society has set us up to believe that no body shape will ever be good enough, and that's not your fault, it's by design. Let's break this down together, because understanding why no body shape ever feels good enough is the first step to breaking free from the cycle. First, let's talk about the history of beauty standards. Every era has idolized a different shape, and those ideals weren't random. They were influenced by culture, economics, even politics. In the Renaissance period, fuller, rounder bodies were celebrated because they symbolized wealth and abundance. In the 1920s, the flapper era brought in the boyish, straight silhouette, which reflected women's growing independence and rebellion against corsets. Fast forward to the 1950s, when Marilyn Monroe's hourglass curves were considered the pinnacle of femininity. By the 1990s, the heroin chic look dominated runways tall, rail. Then models with sharp angles became the aspirational image. Then in the 2010s, the pendulum swung again, glorifying the slim, thick aesthetic, tiny waist, big hips, full chest. The pattern is clear. Beauty standards shift with the times, and they often contradict each other. What was once praised is later criticized, and the reason this matters is because it proves that there has never been and will never be one perfect body shape. The ideal is a moving target. Now, let's bring in some psychology. Researchers talk about a concept called social comparison theory. This is the human tendency to evaluate ourselves against others. Social comparison helped our ancestors survive. It gave them cues about what behaviors or traits were socially accepted. But in today's world, with Instagram, TikTok, and Photoshop filters, we're not just comparing ourselves to our friends or neighbors, we're comparing ourselves to curated, edited, sometimes surgically enhanced images of people all over the world. That creates what psychologists call an upward comparison when you measure yourself against someone who appears better in some way. Constant upward comparisons fuel dissatisfaction and can actually rewire how we see ourselves. Here's another layer, hedonic adaptation. This is the brain's tendency to adapt to positive changes until they no longer feel as satisfying. For example, imagine you lose the weight you thought would make you confident. At first, it feels amazing. You get compliments, your clothes fit differently, you feel on top of the world. But then, a few months later, your brain normalizes the new body. Suddenly, you start noticing new flaws, and the cycle begins again. This explains why even people who achieve their dream body often still struggle with self-image. Marketers know this, and the beauty and wellness industries are built on it. If you've ever felt like you need the next product, the next treatment, or the next plan to finally feel good in your skin, that's not a coincidence. The system profits when you don't feel enough. Every time the beauty ideal shifts, it creates a new demand, a new thing to buy into, literally. When curves are in, shapewear and butt-lifting jeans explode in popularity. When thinness is in, detox teas and calorie trackers take over. The market follows the trend, and your insecurity fuels the sales. There's also biology at play. Human brains are wired with something called the novelty bias. We pay more attention to new, different, and unusual things. That's part of why new beauty ideals catch on so quickly. When a new body type shows up in media, our brains latch onto it as special, desirable, or aspirational, even if it directly contradicts what we were told was ideal just a few years earlier. On top of this, let's not forget the role of digital distortion. Apps like Facetune, filters, and even subtle editing can completely change the way a body looks online. Research shows that when people are repeatedly exposed to altered images, their perception of what's normal shifts. So what we see on social media isn't just aspirational, it's often not even real, and yet our brains still compare our real, three-dimensional selves to those manipulated images. So when you put all of this together, the historical shifts, the psychology of comparison, The brain's hedonic adaptation, the novelty bias, and the influence of marketing, it makes sense why no body shape ever feels like enough. The standard isn't meant to be achieved. It's meant to be chased. It keeps us striving, buying, editing, and feeling like we're always one step away from finally being worthy. Here's the powerful reframe. Once you understand that this system is designed to keep you unsatisfied, you can step outside of it. You can start to recognize when a beauty trend is just that, a trend, not a truth. Instead of molding yourself into whatever shape happens to be in style this decade, you can choose to focus on what really matters, caring for your body in ways that support your health, your confidence, and your unique expression. That's where true beauty begins, not with fitting into a box, but with honoring the body you have. Let me share something personal with you, because I know I'm not alone in this. Growing up, I can remember staring at magazine covers in the grocery store checkout line. You know, the ones glossy pages filled with impossibly tall, thin models, their skin flawless, their bodies perfectly proportioned. I was a teenager trying to figure out who I was, and those images etched themselves into my brain. I thought, if I could just be that thin, then I'd finally feel confident. So, like many of us, I tried. I skipped meals. I overexercised. I'd cut pictures out of magazines and tape them to my mirror as inspiration. No matter how hard I pushed myself, the reflection in the mirror never matched the picture in my head. And even when I got closer to that so-called ideal, I didn't feel happier. I felt emptier. Then something interesting happened. As I moved into my 20s, the trend started to shift. Suddenly, it wasn't about being thin anymore, it was about having curves. The hourglass figure, the tiny waist with larger hips and bust, was everywhere. Celebrities were praised for their slim, thick bodies, and brands started designing clothes to accentuate those proportions. I remember thinking, wait, I just spent years trying to shrink myself, and now I'm supposed to grow in other areas. It was confusing, exhausting, and honestly heartbreaking, and maybe you've experienced this too. Maybe you remember the low-rise jeans of the early 2000s that demanded flat stomachs, or the thigh gap obsession that circulated online in the 2010s. Maybe you felt pressure to have a bubble butt when that became the trend, or now you're noticing how thinness is starting to creep back into fashion again. It's like the rules keep changing and we're all expected to keep up. I can recall specific moments that stick with me. One summer, I was at the beach with friends. I remember looking around and feeling like every other woman had a body that fit better into a bikini than mine. Instead of enjoying the sunshine and the waves, I spent the whole day tugging at my swimsuit and worrying about how my stomach looked when I sat down. Later, I realized no one else was actually paying attention to me. The only one obsessing over my imperfections was me, but that's how comparison works. It hijacks your joy and keeps you focused on what you think you lack. There was another time, scrolling through Instagram late at night, that I found myself saving photos of influencers with sculpted abs and perfect lighting. I thought, if I just buy the leggings they're wearing, maybe I'll feel like that. But I didn't see the reality behind the photo, the posing, the editing, the genetics, the effort that went into curating that one perfect shot. I was comparing my unfiltered, everyday self to their highlight reel, and that's a comparison none of us can ever win. What's wild is how quickly we can internalize these shifts. I've spoken with friends who have lived through similar patterns. One told me she starved herself in high school to fit into the skinny jeans era. Years later, when curves became popular, she spent thousands of dollars on supplements and waist trainers trying to grow into the new ideal. Another friend confided that she felt ashamed of her naturally slim figure during the era of curves, even though just a decade earlier her body type was considered the standard. The goalpost kept moving, and they both felt like they were failing. And maybe you've felt that too, that feeling of chasing something only to realize it's already shifted. You finally lose the weight, but now the trend is muscle tone. You finally embrace your curves, but now thinness is back in. You buy the products, follow the routines, and still end up feeling not enough. That's not because you're lacking, it's because the standard is designed to be unattainable. When I look back, the saddest part isn't even how much time I spent worrying about my body, it's how many experiences I missed because of it. I skipped pool parties because I didn't want to be seen in a swimsuit. I avoided certain outfits because I didn't think my body deserved them. I spent hours stressing over numbers on a scale instead of laughing with friends or pursuing passions that actually lit me up. Comparison stole those moments from me, and I know so many of you can relate. Maybe you've avoided photos because you didn't like how you looked, only to later regret not having those memories captured. Maybe you've tried diets or exercise routines, not because you loved the way they made you feel, but because you thought they'd change your body into something more acceptable. Maybe you've stood in front of your closet, feeling like nothing would make you look right, and ended up canceling plans altogether. If any of that sounds familiar, please know you're not alone. Every woman I've ever spoken to about this has her own version of the same story. Different details, same underlying truth. We've all been made to feel like our bodies are projects that need fixing. And that's not a reflection of who we are, it's a reflection of the unrealistic, ever-shifting standards we've been taught to chase. The reason I share all of this isn't to dwell on the struggle, but to highlight the common thread. You and I, we've lived through different decades, different trends, different ideals, and yet the outcome is the same. No matter how close we get to the look of the moment, it's never enough. And that realization can feel heavy, but it's also freeing. Because once you see the pattern, you can step off the treadmill. You can recognize, asterisk, oh, it's not me that's broken. It's the standard that keeps changing, asterisk, and that's the most relatable truth of all. You were never the problem. Now that we've uncovered how beauty standards are designed to keep us chasing, let's talk about what really matters, stepping into your own power. Because once you see through the illusion, you have a choice, and that choice is where your freedom begins. Here's the truth. You don't need to shrink, sculpt, or reshape yourself to earn worthiness. You don't need to wait until you fit into a certain dress size to deserve joy, intimacy, or love. Your body is not an obstacle to overcome. It's the vessel that carries you through this life, and it is already enough. Think about what your body does for you every single day. Your heart beats over 100 zeros, 0 times without you even asking it to. Your lungs breathe in air and nourish your cells. Your legs carry you from place to place. Your hands allow you to hold loved ones, to create, to express. Even your skin, the largest organ of your body, is constantly working to protect you, regulate your temperature, and heal itself. That's miraculous, that is power, and yet, so often, we overlook all of that just to obsess over a number on the scale or the way our thighs look in a photo. But when you pause and shift your perspective, you realize beauty is not about meeting an external checklist. It's about alignment. It's about how you care for yourself, how you honor your health, how you choose to express your uniqueness. Confidence doesn't come from fitting into a trend. Confidence comes from compassion for yourself, for the parts of you you've criticized, for the story your body has carried you through. Let me say this clearly. There is no one alive who can embody beauty the way you do. Your energy, your presence, your way of speaking, laughing, moving, that's your aura, and that aura cannot be replicated, no matter how many people chase the same standard. That's why beauty is an expression, not a destination. It's not something you arrive at when you finally check off every box. It's something you radiate when you stop dimming yourself, and I want you to know it's okay if you've struggled with this. It's okay if you've dieted, restricted, or criticized yourself. We've all been there, but you don't have to stay there. At any moment, you can choose to release the old narrative and write a new one. You can say, my worth is not up for debate. My body is not a trend. I am not here to conform. I am here to shine. Here's a practice I love. Instead of standing in front of the mirror and picking yourself apart, choose one thing to thank your body for. It doesn't have to be about looks. It could be, thank you, legs, for carrying me through long days. Or, thank you, arms, for letting me hug my best friend. Over time, gratitude rewires the brain. It shifts the focus from criticism to appreciation, from lack to abundance, and that shift builds true confidence, the kind that no trend can take away. Because here's the secret society doesn't tell you. Trends will always change, but your inner light is timeless. Your glow doesn't come from a measurement, it comes from how you nurture yourself. how you show up authentically, how you embody your feminine aura with pride. Imagine if every woman watching this stopped competing with shifting ideals and instead embraced her own expression. Imagine the freedom, the joy, the collective power we would unlock. Beauty would stop being about comparison and it would start being about connection. In connection is where we thrive, not in isolation, not in insecurity, but in solidarity. I also want to remind you of this. Strength and softness can coexist. You can honor your health, work out, eat nourishing foods, care for your skin not because you're chasing someone else's standard, but because you love yourself enough to invest in your well-being. That's the shift. Self-care is not punishment. It's not about restriction, deprivation, or perfection. It's about respect. It's about treating your body as something precious, not as a problem. And when you do that, your energy changes. People notice not because your waist shrank or your hips grew, but because your presence is magnetic. That's real beauty. That's the kind of beauty that lingers, that inspires, that uplifts everyone around you. So, let me tell you again, you are already enough. You don't need to apologize for your shape. You don't need to chase a moving target. You don't need to fit yourself into a box that was never meant to honor your individuality. You are allowed to take up space, to dress how you want, to feel confident in your skin right now. The moment you stop giving your power away to beauty standards is the moment you start living fully. And that's what I want for you. I want you to walk into a room not wondering if you measure up, but knowing that your very presence is a gift. I want you to look in the mirror and see not a list of flaws, but a whole human being worthy of love, laughter, and joy. I want you to realize that the most beautiful thing you can wear is confidence rooted in self-acceptance. So choose it. Choose to honor your body instead of fighting it. Choose to invest in care instead of comparison. Choose to be unapologetically yourself in a world that benefits when you feel small. That choice is the most radical, most powerful, most beautiful act you can make. And when you embrace yourself exactly as you are, you become living proof that beauty isn't about perfection. It's about presence. It's about authenticity. It's about power. So here's what I want you to take away. Beauty standards will keep shifting, but your worth is not negotiable. You are not a trend. You are not a number. You are not a project to be fixed. You are a whole, radiant, powerful being, and no filter, no runway, no magazine can ever define that. The most beautiful aura you can wear is confidence rooted in self-love. And that starts right now, not when you change, not if. You achieve something, but today, in the body you already live in. If this message resonated with you, share it with a friend who needs the reminder, and let's start rewriting what beauty means together. And don't forget to subscribe to Feminine Aura for more science-based truths, personal stories, and empowering conversations that remind you of your timeless beauty. Because beauty isn't perfection, beauty is presence. Beauty is you.